I found my wife's secret bank account draining over $300, $0 into her lover's offshore account, only to discover she'd forged my signature during our divorce. Now she's suing me for joint property I never agreed to give up. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, life was pretty normal up until about 6 months ago. My name's Dave, I'm 42, and I've been married to Lisa for nearly 15 years. We had a decent life, good jobs, a nice house, 2 kids I adore. But over the past year, something started feeling off. Little things at first, her phone buzzing constantly late at night, her being secretive about her whereabouts, and a weird change in her attitude toward me. She'd get defensive if I asked questions, brush things off, or tell me I was overthinking. I chalked some of it up to stress, maybe work, or her trying to juggle everything. But then came the real shocker. It was a random Tuesday when I decided to check our joint bank account after noticing some odd charges. I wasn't planning to do anything drastic, just a quick glance, but what I saw made my stomach drop. There was a massive withdrawal, over $300, $0, transferred to some offshore account. That amount of money isn't just a mistake or some minor error. It was deliberate and it was draining fast. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I stared at the screen, trying to process how this much money could disappear without my knowledge. My heart started pounding. I knew Lisa had a decent salary, but that kind of cash, it was way more than she'd ever made or even hinted at having. I immediately felt a cold, sinking feeling. The account was in her name, but I had no idea she was capable of this kind of betrayal. I remembered her acting weird lately, secretive, defensive, always brushing off questions about money. I'd caught her lying a few times about small things, but I never suspected she'd be capable of this level of deception. I wondered who she was really seeing, what she was hiding, and how she'd gotten away with it. I sat there in stunned silence, trying to wrap my head around the fact that my wife, my partner for so many years, was secretly siphoning off our money into some offshore account to fund her affair. I was naive, but I also never thought she'd go this far. The betrayal cut deep. I felt humiliated, furious, and totally lost. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure what I'd say or how I'd handle it. The trust I had in her was shattered, and I was suddenly facing the harsh reality that everything I thought I knew about Lisa was a lie. The worst part, I had no idea how long she'd been doing this or who she was really with. It was like my whole life was turned upside down in a matter of minutes. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't concentrate on anything. My mind kept circling back to that bank statement, to the image of her secretly funneling money somewhere, to the woman I thought I knew. I started digging, trying to find out if there were any other accounts or transactions I hadn't noticed. That's when I discovered the real shocker. She'd forged my signature on some documents, transferring the money herself. I found fake signatures, fake IDs, and a bunch of shady paperwork buried in her files. It was like she'd planned this for months, maybe longer. I remember the exact moment I found her phone one night. I was just trying to look for something else, something innocent like a receipt, and I saw a string of messages. They weren't just flirtatious, they were downright dirty. She was talking about sex with her lover, describing plans to meet up, laughing about how I was clueless. Her words cut through me like a knife. I saw pictures, too, some of her with a guy I'd never seen before, smiling and touching each other like they were the only 2 people in the world. Betrayal hit me hard. I felt like I'd been slapped across the face, then kicked in the gut. I confronted her that night. I couldn't hold back anymore. I laid everything out, showed her the bank statements, the forged signatures, the messages, everything. I was furious, shaking, trying not to lose control. She sat there, cool as ever, with that bitchy smirk on her face. She everything at first. "You're crazy," she said. "You don't know what you're talking about. Someone's framing me. Maybe it's a mistake." She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was overreacting because I did. Trust her, but I had the proof right there. How could she lie so easily? How could she deny the obvious? Her reaction made me feel sick. It was like she thought she was entitled to everything, our money, my trust, my marriage, and I was just supposed to accept her lies. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just jealous or insecure. She threw in some classic, "You don't understand how hard I've been working," and you're just accusing me because you're insecure about losing me. I could see her trying to manipulate me, trying to turn it around on me, but I wasn't falling for it. I was too angry, too betrayed. I told her she was done lying, that I knew about the affair and the money. That's when she finally lost her cool, started crying and screaming about how I was ruining her life, how she loved me and the kids, and that I was just a jealous, controlling husband. That night was the beginning of the end. I was devastated but also furious. I knew I couldn't stay with someone who'd do this to me, who'd lie, cheat, and steal behind my back. I felt so many conflicting emotions: hurt, rage, confusion, and the worst part was realizing I might never get the real truth. How long had she been doing this? Who was she with? How much more had she hidden? I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with that guy, her lying, her stealing. It was like my whole world was crumbling. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. All I knew was that I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. Over the next few days, I dove deeper into her financials, trying to piece together what she'd been up to. Turns out, she'd set up multiple accounts, all under fake names, and had been funneling money into offshore accounts for months. The more I looked, the more I realized how meticulously she'd planned this. She forged my signature on legal documents, transferred hundreds of thousands of dollars, and even had a hidden stash of cash stashed away in a safe deposit box. It was like she'd built her own little empire behind my back. I couldn't believe I missed all the signs. The late nights, her secretive phone habits, the way she'd dodge questions about money, it all makes sense now. She'd been lying to me for years, probably planning this entire scheme while pretending to be the perfect wife. I felt so stupid, so betrayed. The worst part was knowing she'd been lying about her affair, too. She'd been sneaking around with that guy, probably for months, and I had no idea. I had trusted her, loved her, and she'd been living a double life. One night, I decided I needed to confront her again. I wanted answers, real answers. I sat her down in the living room, looked her straight in the eyes, and told her I knew everything. I showed her the bank statements, the forged signatures, the messages. I told her I'd found her secret accounts and the offshore transfers. Her face went pale, then flushed with anger. She everything at first, claiming I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. But I had proof, real proof, and I wasn't going to back down. She started to get defensive, throwing out lies like I was just trying to secure our future, or you don't understand how hard I've been working. She even had the nerve to say she was doing it for us, that she wanted to surprise me with a big inheritance. I couldn't believe the audacity. I told her I didn't want her money, that I just wanted honesty. That's when she snapped. She called me controlling, accused me of spying on her, and said I was ruining everything. She told me I was just jealous and insecure, that she loved me and only wanted what was best for our family. But I wasn't buying it. I could see right through her lies. I knew she'd been cheating on me with that guy, draining our savings and forging my signature to cover her tracks. I was furious, hurt, and disgusted all at once. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I was done trusting her. She started crying, yelling that I was overreacting, that I was destroying her life. But I knew I had to act fast. I contacted a lawyer, began gathering evidence, and decided I'd have to take legal action if I wanted to get that money back and protect myself from her schemes. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut every day. How could she do this? How could she lie and cheat and steal from me and our kids? The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever fully recover. But the one thing I knew for sure was that I couldn't stay silent. I had to stand up for myself and fight for what was right. I'd been a fool to trust her blindly, but from now on, I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done. After I gathered all the evidence, bank statements, forged documents, her secret messages, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't just confront her again and hope she'd come clean. I needed legal protection, and I needed to stop her from draining any more money or destroying anything else. So I contacted a lawyer the very next day. We went over everything, and she told me I had grounds for a serious lawsuit, especially since she'd forged my signature and transferred hundreds of thousands of dollars illegally. The lawyer advised me to get a restraining order and start the divorce process immediately. I was hesitant at first, part of me still loved her or at least wanted to believe she could change, but I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. Her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal, they all added up to one thing. She was dangerous to stay with. I also discovered that she'd been draining our joint account into her offshore account over the span of several months. She'd been slowly siphoning off money, probably to fund her affair or her new life somewhere else. The day I served her with divorce papers, she went ballistic. She screamed, called me controlling, accused me of ruining her life, and said I was overreacting. She even tried to gaslight me, saying I was paranoid and that I'd made everything up. But I had the proof, screenshots, bank records, her forged signatures, all of it. I told her I wasn't going to let her get away with it anymore. I made it clear I was serious about ending the marriage and fighting for my rights. That confrontation was a turning point. She started to realize I wasn't backing down. I also found out she'd hired her own lawyer, probably to try to fight the divorce or claim joint property she had no right to. She kept insisting. She was the victim, that I was just jealous and controlling, but I knew the truth now. I'd been blind for too long, but not anymore. I was finally seeing her for what she really was, a liar, a cheat, and a thief. Emotionally, I was a mess. Part of me still felt the sting of betrayal, like I'd lost the woman I loved. But another part was furious. Furious at her lies, her manipulations, her greed. I started to feel a strange sense of relief, like I was finally waking up from a nightmare. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were going to be legal battles, accusations, maybe even more surprises. But I was determined to fight for what was mine. I wasn't going to let her walk away with our money, our home, or our dignity. It was time to take back control of my life, no matter how hard it was going to be. The legal process moved quickly once I had all my evidence in order. My lawyer filed a motion to freeze her accounts and prevent her from moving any more money. The judge granted the restraining order, and suddenly she was cut off from accessing our joint funds. That was a relief, but it also made her more aggressive. She started claiming I was abusing her, trying to turn the kids against me, and making wild accusations to the court. Anything she thought would buy her more time or sway the judge. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her financials. I found even more offshore accounts, hidden investments, and suspicious transfers I hadn't seen before. It seemed like she'd been planning this for years, building a secret empire behind my back. I realized she'd been living a double life, pretending to be the perfect wife while secretly siphoning money and cheating on me with that guy. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. How could I have missed all this? How could I have been so blind? The divorce hearings were brutal. She showed up in court, acting victimized, crying crocodile tears, claiming she was just trying to protect her family's future. She insisted I was controlling and abusive, trying to paint herself as the innocent victim. But I had all the proof. Every forged signature, every illicit transfer, every message. I presented everything to the judge, who seemed to be leaning toward granting me full custody of the kids and ordering her to pay back the stolen money. Throughout this process, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because I finally saw her true colors and was taking steps to protect myself. Sadness because I realized the woman I loved was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I had trusted her for so long, believed in our marriage, and now it was all falling apart. I couldn't help but wonder how someone could lie, cheat, and steal so brazenly and still pretend to be the victim. In the end, I won most of what I was fighting for. The judge ordered her to pay back the stolen money, awarded me full custody, and limited her access to our assets. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was enough to start rebuilding my life. The hardest part was accepting that I'd been betrayed so deeply, by the woman I'd trusted most. But I also learned a lot about myself, that I could survive this, that I deserved honesty, and that sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail to protect what's yours. Moving forward, I know I'll never trust blindly again, but I also know I'll be stronger for it. In the aftermath of everything, I've spent countless nights reflecting on what happened and what I've learned. The betrayal cut so deep that I thought I'd never be able to trust again, not just her, but anyone. But over time, I've come to see it as a harsh lesson, one I needed to learn the hard way. I've realized that honesty and integrity are everything in a relationship, and I should have paid more attention to the warning signs. Still, I can't help but feel a strange sense of relief. The weight of her lies and betrayal is lifting, and I'm slowly starting to rebuild my life. I've also become more aware of the importance of protecting myself financially and emotionally. I've started seeing a therapist to work through the anger, sadness, and betrayal I've felt. It's been a tough road, but talking through everything has helped me process the pain. I've come to understand that her actions weren't just about money. They were about control, deception, and a complete disregard for the vows we once shared. That realization has made me more cautious, but also more determined to find someone who values honesty and respect. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know that I can't change the past. All I can do now is focus on my future. I've sold the house, paid off the remaining debts, and started fresh in a new place. The kids are doing okay, and I make sure they see that their dad is still standing, still fighting. I want them to know that even when life throws the worst at you, you can survive. More than that, you can come out stronger. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I'll say this. Trust your instincts, but also pay attention to the small signs. Don't ignore red flags just because you don't want to believe the worst. And when you find out someone you love has betrayed you, don't be afraid to fight for what's right. You deserve honesty, respect, and loyalty. It's not easy, and it's going to hurt like hell, but in the end, standing up for yourself is the only way to truly move forward. I've learned that the hard way, but I'm grateful for the lessons, because now I know what I'll never tolerate again.